This entitled mum is breaking the law to protect her child. But when she makes a daycare worker lie to another parent's face, some lies are just too big to hide. Happy birthday if today's your birthday, and on with the revamped show. In the story is ED, entitled Director, the main EP for this story, ET, entitled Teacher, DS, Director's Son, LG, Little Girl, GD, Good Dad, EM, entitled Mum, TD, Tough Dad, RT, Random Teacher, WC, Wild Child, a secretary, and some random kids. And me, Ms. OP. Obviously me for this story. For some quick background on me, I've always wanted to be a teacher. I'm not getting into it here, but I was mistreated as a child and forced to raise multiple siblings. So I just wanted to help kids and grow to love them more. Unfortunately, my parents didn't file their taxes because they're just not good people, meaning I couldn't get any financial aid for college after I graduated. And of course, they weren't saving up anything. Luckily, you don't need any sort of degree to be an assistant preschool teacher, and the center was even going to pay me to get my CDA, so I could be a full teacher. At this point in time, I'd been kicked out almost 2 years prior by my parents, and had lived on my own for a while, and had actually just moved in with my grandparents because my grandfather's cancer had taken a turn for the worse, and the center was only a 20-minute walk away, so the job seemed like a dream. From my first day out of training, unfortunately, things didn't go well. The way the center worked was open at 6, classes start at 8, and go until 3, including nap, lunch, and snack, even for the infants, then daycare until 6. ET was supposed to be my lead teacher with me, assisting her with her classes, but 1. She didn't like me because her previous assistant didn't take the job serious and quit, so she assumed I was going to do the same. And 2, probably the reason they all quit, she'd leave at 12 every day. She'd been there longer than any other teacher, so apparently when ED, who had only been there for a few years, first came in, and this teacher said, "This is what I want my schedule to be," that's what she got, even if it meant bringing in her assistant later to teach the entire last 3 hours of classes, and that would be the only person there at pickup. Luckily, I did take this job seriously, so even when she didn't do anything but criticize me and complain every single day, while I did literally half her job for $2 less an hour without benefits. And let's face it, I did the harder half because I was there for snack, lunch, snack, and if she didn't do outdoor play in the morning, I had to fit that in too. I enjoyed it. I was there for the kids, and that was the bottom line. So, on with the story. This center had a bad habit of taking advantage of me all around. Because I arrived later than most of the others, they taught me to close even though it was against company policy, to the point I was told to keep this a secret, then stuck me on that every night. This meant that as other teachers' classes grew smaller, they could combine them with mine, as long as we stayed within the legal limit, and the teacher would go home when we were in ration again, the legal amount of children for a certain age a single adult can watch at one time. Additionally, because I was the last one in the building, they made me double check all the rooms were clean. Once teachers realized how efficient I was at this, they stopped cleaning their rooms altogether. We had a total of 12 classrooms, 2 for every age group, and on top of that, while ET would complain if she was even a minute late to revive her from the class, meaning I actually had to get to work and clock in a few minutes early every day. I couldn't stay a minute past 7 without getting yelled at for taking so long, because the daycare closes at 6, as if all the kids are even gone by 6. So to ease my load at the end of the night, instead of having the teachers bring their kids to me, I started bringing the kids I had to that teacher's classroom, and we'd all clean up together before leaving a room. I had just finished combining with a younger class, and this is how DS and LG ended up in my class. Everything was going fine at first, kids playing as usual, DS with a car, while LG stood beside me watching everyone. She told me she wanted to be a teacher and was practicing. I looked through the window into the next class and noticed they were low on kids, so asked RT if she wanted to combine. She said yes, then brought her kids over. We were already in ratio, so I was able to send her home, but her room was the messier of the two, so I asked the kid to clean up so we could move. Because there wasn't much to do, I was letting the kids do it on their own and told LG to go help. She immediately ran over to DS, who was still playing with the car. LG said, "Miss OP said it's time to clean up, so you gotta clean up." And of course the kid ignores her. She repeated herself, this time more urgently, and the little boy stands up. I'm not sure what his intent was, but he never got to it because LG just picked up the car and put it away herself. She went to walk away and DS let out an angry little cry and pushed her hard. Now, our center was a little low budget, but that is no excuse for this. And I said it was a bad idea from the first time I saw it. Our classroom couldn't afford a bookcase, so ET thought it would be a good idea to bring in her husband's big metal toolbox. When DS pushed LG, she hit her head directly on the corner. I was there before she even hit the ground itself, and I was very careful to simply ease her down and examine her immediately. But this didn't look good from the start. Not only that, but her initial reaction was just dazed. I've watched her skin both her knees and elbows all at the same time, and I've had to chase her down to clean her up and put band-aids on. But when her eyes cleared and her face scrunched, she just said "owie," holding her head, and couldn't even tell me what was wrong beyond that. I knew I wasn't supposed to move her, but she was starting to panic, and all the other kids were surrounding us to the point of almost stepping on her. So I very slowly and carefully set her on the couch and called the secretary. As I was waiting for ED, I tried again to talk to LG, but now her main complaint was her stomach hurting and starting to cry because she felt like she was going to throw up, and her pupils were completely blown out. Meanwhile, I had a classroom full of kids I couldn't stick anywhere because the only people in the building were me, the secretary, and the ED. After a few minutes, the secretary rushes in. As this is happening, I'm talking to DS about why pushing isn't nice and writing up the incident report, both of which needed to be signed by me, as the witnessing teacher, a daycare official higher than me, and the parent of whichever child the report is for, one for the one injured and one for the one who did the injuring. I was just explaining to him that no, this wasn't an accident. You did this on purpose and you need to say sorry. When the secretary asked what happened, I told her, and she said she'd go alert LG's parents right away. As she's leaving, the director walks in and asks what happened. I again tell her. At first, she's all concerned, kneeling next to LG on the couch and examining her. However, as soon as she heard that it was her son who did the pushing, her tone changed. This woman stood up, looked me dead in the eyes, and waved off the crying, sick, in pain preschooler, begging for her daddy beside her. "Oh, she'll be fine, just a bruise. Where did you say she hit her head?" "On a toolbox." "Yeah, but where? Like what side?" Me points to the growing bruise on the left side of the girl's forehead. "Yeah, she'll be fine. I'll go let secretary know it was just a misunderstanding." "But ED, she's very clearly hurt," trying to make her see reason. "What should I tell her parents?" "Well, you should tell them the truth. Tell them she fell." "But she didn't fall." "Yes, she did. DS may have aided it, but she still just fell." "But I didn't see it happen. For all I know, she fell." "And did you really see it that well to say she didn't?" "Yes, I was right there. DS pushed her." "You know, you should really think about how much you want this position here and what you're willing to do to deserve it. We don't tell lies at this center. And I didn't see her get pushed, so I don't know that's what happened. For all I know, she fell. For all her parents know, she fell. So tell them the truth. She fell." I have an audiographic memory, meaning sometimes things I hear get stuck in my head word for word, and while the rest of the conversation is summary and paraphrase, the last statement was her exact words. I was dumbstruck. I'm a little ashamed to admit I just stood there. I didn't say anything as she walked out because I was appalled. I wanted to throw up. I didn't realize she had taken the incident report with her until later. I spent the time as parent after parent showed up pacing, handing over day reports, and trying to be vague about LG, who was still barely moving on the couch. Then finally, the moment of truth. GD shows up. By now, I'd have my plan set on what I was going to do, but ED was a step ahead of me and rushed in behind him. Hello, GD?" GD, clearly confused seeing his daughter. "What's going on?" "Oh, well, we had a little accident. As you can see, LG fell, but she'll be fine. Just bumped her head a little." "Well, isn't there a report? I know how this works. We get a paper every time she gets a paper cut." ED purses her lips for a second. Let me go get that for you." At this point, she walks out of the room and GD looks at me. Now, GD has already had issues in the past with the director suspecting she's racist, so he apparently already thought something might be up just for that reason. and turned to me and asked what happened. Now my plan was put into place. I was told to tell you your daughter fell. What? I look him in the eyes with as much fear and concern as possible and repeat slowly. I was told to tell you your daughter fell. GD still looks confused. Ask her, gestures to LG. At this point GD asks, and of course LG tells him everything. Now hold on, how come the story I'm getting from her and the one you told me, that ain't matching up? Me, seeing the realization dawn on him, shrugs and repeats. I was told to tell you your daughter fell. Thankfully I didn't need to say any more because Edie was back with the incident report, only it wasn't my report and she only had one. The dad signed, giving me a very knowing and angered look as he signed the paper he knew full well was a lie, but it was also clear he understood, revealing that would cost me my job. He of course took her right to the hospital, and unfortunately she had a minor concussion. I guess he couldn't think of something to tell his wife, because she called the center screaming at the director for the whole thing, and of course the director called me a liar. I was called into Edie's the next day for a long talk, where she basically tried to get me to quit, trying to convince me I didn't belong there, and when it was clear I wasn't, then she said I needed to be punished for my insubordination. Right. She even tried to make it like the fact I was talking to her son about whether or not it was an accident after the incident proves I was lying, and he didn't mean to push her, and when I said that wasn't really how it went, and I was trying to get him to apologize, and he told me it was an accident, and that I was just trying to get him to not lie, and to do the right thing, but she's now switched her argument to he was too young to know the difference between doing something on purpose and not. Yeah, no. We were an early childhood development center. It was literally in our job description to know that wasn't true, but I was getting nowhere, so I just decided to bite my tongue and do my best to move on. Should have quit. Thought I could protect kids by staying and being the good one in the center. I was wrong, because there will always be another EP. Suddenly, I had to be out as soon as the last kid was, even if I was closing. Then they cut my hours, and ET started complaining to me about the fact that she had to start working some afternoons, and how it was all my fault every time I came in. Classrooms were left as if the teachers were throwing extra toys. All of a sudden, people weren't even taking out their own trash. This went on for a while, but I stayed resilient. Meanwhile, it was clear the director was running out of ways to try and make me quit. Unfortunately, she didn't have to think of more. And just so you know, GD pulled LG out as soon as he found another center for her to go to, about a month later. I miss her, but it was for the best. About a month and a half after the initial incident, I once again combined classes with RT, but this time we weren't in ratio yet, so she had any kids who wanted to listen to a story in our Unity on the carpet, while I was at the table doing a bit of a more sophisticated craft project with the more advanced kids. The story didn't last long, as her kids got restless quickly, so she decided to switch to free play time since it was daycare hours anyway. EM walks in, gets her daughter from her class, talks to her teacher, leaves. I didn't think anything of it. More kids leave, we get in ratio. RT leaves. Eventually the crafts are finished and I tell the children it's free play for all. Enter WC Wildchild. The adorable little thief stole my phone right from my pocket, then proceeded to run around the room with it. Now, teachers aren't allowed to run after children unless they are hurt, so I had to speed walk after this boy, which was not a fast enough pace to prevent him from darting into the bathroom and tossing my phone in the toilet, then proceeding to try to flush it. I pulled it out in time, to a complete temper tantrum because apparently WC was very upset he didn't get to see what would happen if he flushed my phone. I'd met WC's mum before, and she was the kind of mum who thinks their little boy is a perfect angel who deserves everything he asks for and can do no wrong. So I assumed Dad would be the same. Luckily, we have a pretty gentle Oreo report policy when children are causing trouble. Say something they did good today, mention the incident, finish it off with something the child enjoyed. TD, WC's dad, showed up, and here's basically how this conversation went. And keep in mind, I'm not much over 5 foot, and this man isn't any taller than me, but I was terrified. Hello, Mr. TD. WC made a beautiful craft today. You can pick it up in the morning when it's dry. Now, we did have a small incident where he took my phone and threw it down the toilet, but we've talked about why that is wrong, and he's had so much fun playing with his friends. Okay, back up. He threw your phone in the toilet? Well, yes, but it's okay. No, it isn't okay. How could you say this is okay? Well, no, I didn't mean throwing phones down the toilet is okay, but my phone is... Shh, did WC do bad? Well, just answer the question, yes or no, because I know how to handle my son. Now, if my son does something wrong, tell me he did something wrong, because if my son did something wrong, then I will deal with it. Now tell me right now, because if he did wrong, I will deal with it. And if not, then why am I even standing here? Did my son do wrong? Yes or no? Yes? Then I'll deal with it. And with that, he was out. The next morning I came into work and Edie was waiting with a crap-eating smirk and a pink slip. Apparently EM called and complained, saying that when she came to pick up her daughter, I never acknowledged her and was just sitting at the table with 2 kids, while RT had the rest of them running around barely in her control needing my help. And TD called complaining that I was too lenient dealing with his son. EM's child wasn't my student, lied, and I was following policy with WC. Of course, they have to investigate this sort of thing to some degree, and RT told the director herself that wasn't what happened. But according to ED, while parents complained, there was nothing I could do. This was the first 2 parents' complaint I'd ever gotten. I'd been there 4 months. Anyone in daycare can tell you meaningless parental complaints like that usually come weekly. I was ticked. I told her flat out I'd kept that place clean for everyone every morning and every night I closed, and was the only one, the teacher who engaged with the students more than any other and made up the most activities, the one whose students had shown the most improvement under specific instructions. And I was the only one to collaborate with other teachers to help kids who should be in higher classes than their age allows. And the great part here, she couldn't deny it. She bit her cheek, looking like the words tasted awful. Yeah, you're right. And just about everyone had really nice things to say about you. Then that stupid smirk. Except E.T. And you know, she's really your lead, so she would know best. E.T. sees me less than everyone else. She leaves halfway through the day. Well, she's the one who trained you. I've told you from the beginning she didn't like me, and asked for another lead. And if RT herself told you what EM said wasn't true, you can't fire me. Well, actually we can. I mean, technically we don't need a reason to fire you at all, but our hands are tied. Parents complained. You know, I never really thought you were cut out for this. You really belong somewhere less professional. Maybe try the Ma and Pop daycare down the street. Again, exact words. I was so offended, and only because of the way she said it. Edie just used the situation to her advantage to get rid of me to cover up her mistake. What she didn't realize is that there was already evidence, or lack thereof, right in her own filing cabinet. Anytime the kids got in trouble or hurt or anything in the center, a report was filed. Therefore, every single folder in that cabinet was pretty darn thick, except her son's. Somehow, this boy hadn't managed to have anything on his record for over 3 years at that center. I've noticed it a few times while there, and her son was far from perfect. In fact, he'd often get so hard to manage, she'd come get him and have to spend the day playing in the office. So it just doesn't make sense. When I was fired, I reported everything to the HR department, start to finish. I ended up getting a job as a waitress, and my favorite student happened to be a frequent customer, so I got updates on the whole situation from him and his mum. Apparently, ED started having to be monitored randomly 3 times a month. However, for someone always on my butt about everything, turns out she was breaking a ton of company rules, letting toddlers sleep with blankets over their faces, lying about the amount of times classes were getting outside. It wasn't matching teachers' reports, not spacing nap costs properly, even skimping on nutrition by not always providing every class with milk every day. She cracked under the pressure and applied for a transfer. Where is she directing now? The Ma and Pop she told me to work at. Even better, it's not an early learning center at all. It's just a church daycare. No structure, but Jesus and wild children. And now she can deal with all the entitled religious parents. The director of this childcare center is like a supervillain. She seems like she's this mastermind behind all of the things that happen to be wrong with the center. I don't know if the parents of that little girl could have taken any legal action, but if they could, surely what she did was criminal. Hiding evidence, basically telling the witness to lie about it, I imagine that would get you in a lot more trouble than the actual incident itself, which she did nothing wrong. I'm glad that she got exposed in the end for the true fraud that she was. I just don't like seeing people like that get away with things. And such a beautifully ironic way as well. Oh, I'll look down on this other daycare center and that's where you should be working, that's more suitable for you. Well, I guess it turns out that you were more suited for the less professional place, weren't you? Submit your story to be read on the channel at VoiceyHereStories@gmail.com and join our Voicey veteran community at r/VoiceyHere. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell to never miss an episode. Alright, Voicey veterans, I'll see you in the next one.